boys and girls, welcome back. It's your main math man coming to you live from Mayfield. And in this video, we're going to be working with those four composite area problems that we had before, the nice colorful pages that you saw. And it was tricky at first, but the ones that stayed through and worked through it were able to solve it very simply and said, oh, that's easy. So, in these problems, again, they're going to kind of look something like this. Again, make sure you're remembering the steps first to be able to find and solve composite area. Commitment number 1 is identifying those shapes. Coming in at number 2, label those shapes. Coming in at number 3, redraw the shapes. Coming in at number 4, find the area of each shape. Topping us off at number 5, find the sum or the difference, depending on the problem, of all the areas. And so for us, to keep it simple for ourselves, it kind of looks something like this. There. Identify, label, redraw, find those areas, and then find the sum or the difference. Alright, so for that first problem, it kind of gave you this looking shape, a nice bluish hue. And so it had first, let's see if we can display this for ourselves. So we had this, and let me see if I can pull up our other idea for ourselves. So we have, I believe this is one. There we go. Alright, let me see if we can keep this off the side. Let's put it right down here. Alright, so again, making sure you have that idea. You're just going to go through, let's identify these first. So let's have that we're going to have a rectangle and triangle. Now what do we need to do? Well, we need to label those shapes. So let's say that X and Y, where X is the rectangle and Y is the triangle. We want to redraw those shapes, and so we have our beautifully drawn to an absolute perfection X and Y. And then for the fourth step, we need to find the areas of that. So for the first step, again, we take this step at a time, easing into it. So again, to find the area of a rectangle, always do the length times the width. Plug in those values, and you should end up with 63 meters squared. Trying to solve for the area of the triangle now, you have the area of that triangle Y is going to be 1/2 times the base times the height. And what I suggest you do is, you don't need to change it to a decimal or anything like that, just divide by 2 at the very end. Meaning this, if you multiply and plug in those values, you have 9 times 6, that's 54, that's quick math. Divided by 2 is going to be 27. So again, try to get used to dividing by 2 for the very end. So now what's step 5? Well, since in these 4 problems we're just going to be finding the sum of the composite figures, all we have to do is just add those 2 together. So we're going to have the area of X plus the area of Y is going to be 63 plus 27, quick math again, is 90 meters squared. Alright, moving forward, and as always, don't forget, you can pause, rewind, close captioned, but I highly recommend that you don't have it muted, because let's be honest, you can't get any better. Moving forward. So we have a couple different shapes going on with this one, but if you're able to see that, let's say that these are going to have a rectangle in the center. Again, you're not necessarily sure that it's a square. It might look like a square, but well, this might look like sunglasses. It could just be prescriptions. Then you have some circles, and again, this part, when I was trying to explain to people, for some reason they got caught up on it. When you have half of a circle and another half of the circle, Well, what happens when you put them together? You got a full circle. It was impressive, but yes, that forms now two circles, two full circles, and so we can label this as X and Y, which let me actually do. Let's say our rectangle X, and let's say Y. All right. Again, yeah, something looking like this, and so now we can redraw those shapes, making sure that you have the appropriate dimensions or attributes. And so now we have the rectangle is going to be X, and the two circles are Y. So now, when you are given this, you have to be able to notice what is given for the circle Y. Well, it's the diameter. So you have to be very mindful of that. So what we do need, however, is the radius. And very smoothly of you, you know that, hey, I know that the radius is half of the diameter, and so I can just do 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that's how I get a radius of 1. Again, finding the area of a rectangle is just simply length times width. And so we have the area of our rectangle X is 4 feet squared. And then let's just solve for one of our circles, since they're exactly the same, so we know we only have to do it once. So let's find the area using the formula of pi times the radius squared, or to the second power. So that's going to be 3.14 times 1 squared, which is just 1. Any number times 1 is that number, and so we just have our area of the one circle is 3.14. So don't forget, we have two circles. So when we get the sum of all of them, make sure that you are including those two circles. So we have the area of X plus 2Y, because we have two circles. So it's going to be 4 plus 2 times 3.14 is going to be 10.28 feet squared. Usually you have to round to the nearest hundredth, but since it already has stopped at said column, we're good. Moving forward, on the back, there is this shape, and a lot of you were able to dissect it into numerous parts, which is totally fine. Everybody has their own way. As long as you were able to end up in the right area, meaning you got the same answer as I did, that's totally fine. Be very careful though. Keep it simple for yourself, as always. So let's just do two shapes. So let's have a rectangle and a trapezoid, and let's see let's find out what we can label it as. So when I labeled, I chose X and Z this time to keep it consistent with our trapezoid. So again, I cut along this horizontal, or just straight across the top, and so that way it formed this nice trapezoid Z. Again, I know that there's a little dashed line. It's just saying that, hey, that height right there, that's going to be 8. So keep it simple for yourself. So again, we redraw the shapes, perfectly drawn as always. We have our X and we have our Z. Something more like that. Okay. We have our trapezoid Z. Again, when you are looking at the formulas for said figures, again, make sure you're using the appropriate one. So we have a rectangle, and so we're going to have length times width, and then when we have a trapezoid, make sure you're identifying that carefully. So it's going to be the area of the trapezoid is equal to 1/2 times the height times the quantity. Again, that's the parentheses. It's going to be the first base. I can actually scroll down, so it's going to be the first base plus the second base, and then it's not b1, b2, or b squared, anything like that. It's just two different bases because they're different lengths. Again, please make sure that you're very careful when you see this. Again, as the first base and the second base are two different lengths, and so you add them together, then you can move forward. So let's have our shapes. So let me find the area of the rectangle X. Again, that's just the length times the width. Almost forgot it. But luckily I wrote it down. Length times the width. Then it's going to be 7 times 4 is 28. And so that's 28 centimeters squared. And so now we have the trapezoid, however. It's going to be a little bit different. So again, make sure you're taking your time as you move through this. So you have your formula. You've got the area of the trapezoid Z is going to be equal to 1/2 times the height times the first base plus the second base. Plugging those values in. Again, just like we did in the last problem, or excuse me, the first problem, I should say, we divide by 2 at the very end. So just take your time as you move through it. So plug in our values. We have to do the innermost on the parentheses first. And so we have 7 plus 19 is going to be 26. 26 times 8 divided by 2 is going to be 104. And specifically, always label your values. Add those 2 values together to get the total sum of the composite area. That's going to be 132 centimeters squared. Again, you know that you're in the right direction since you have area is in the second power. Again, if you need to pause, take a deep breath, exhale, gather yourself, find where you're at on the coordinate plane, be able to do all this math in your brain, and move forward. And so now, when you have, again, half circle, another half circle. I know I'm gonna blow your mind, but I promise you, when you put these two together, when these 2 powers combine, it has a full circle. So, that means in this picture, we have a rectangle plus a circle. We label them as such, and as always, redraw the shapes, and so we have 4 and 15, and then again, it gives you the diameter, so be very mindful, take your time, think, okay, I need the radius, so I need to take half of that. So the radius for that circle Y would be 7.5. Moving forward, again in the rectangle area, we have the area of X is going to be the length times the width, which is 4 times 15. And then we have that gives us 60 feet squared. Lastly, we have our area of our circle Y. Again, using that radius for ourselves, we have pi times the radius squared. Plugging in those values carefully, we have 3.14 times 56.25. Again, it's kind of a crazy going number, but that's totally fine. We wait to the very end to round. So we add those 2 together, and you want to round to the nearest hundredth. So make sure when you're doing this, again, you can use your wonderful Desmos calculator, and it says to type in, let's say round, let's say, use that function tool. Let's bust out the round tool. We said 236.625. And I know it says a certain number, but we have to remember, we want to go to the hundredths column. That's the second one after the decimal place. So we put a comma, second, and holy smokes, it did it for us. So, again, plugging that in like so, gives us our rounded answer of 236.63 feet squared. Again, if you need to review, or if you need any help with that Desmos calculator, please feel free to ask, or just put up your hand, make eye contact, tell me something, give me something to help you with. Because that is literally my job, and I'm more than happy to do it. So please ask questions, and as always, super slam that subscribe button.